everybody is getting in here now. And if you've been with us the last, it's been a while now. We started the Stop the Insanity series, which we went through the woven, and now we're into the knits. And I know most people are here all the time, or at least in and out, so I won't go on forever. But it's all about changing a pattern that you already have and you know fits, or you've made the adjustments to fit, changing certain things about the pattern to make it different. So, turning a shirt into a dress, changing the type of sleeve, changing the hem, um, all kinds of
Collars.
collars. We've done pockets, all kinds of different things just to um, save you the time, the money, the hassle of reworking a whole new pattern when you already have something that fits.
Yes, and in most cases, what a designer does is they have a block. So they have a torso block or a bodice. And so then, whatever they're going to design that's a bodice, a top of some kind, they start with that block and they make all the changes to that block because they are satisfied and happy with that block. Well, that's what we're doing. You've created your own torso block or bodice block and you're happy with it. So, why start all over again? Like Jessica said, that's where the insanity comes in. Use that block and make some of these simple changes. And you know what we do a lot is we like to look at online catalogs or some that come in the mail still and get inspiration. And you'll see something a designer has done. Add a yoke to the back or split the back and put a little shirt tail. Whatever they do, you could look at it now and say, well, I could do that. I could do that, and I've already got the pattern that fits me. All I have to do is, A, B, C, and I'm done, as opposed to starting out with a whole brand new pattern that probably isn't going to fit and either making it up to find out it's a water or going through all of the steps to make it fit. So, but please, as you follow through with the Stop the Insanity series, make sure you have a well fitting pattern to start, or what's the point?
Right. Lost my thought process. Oh, so we went through.
Hello,
Sorry,
come back, Jessica.
it's already too hot in here. Fried my brain. So we went through the entire woven series, and you can find that on YouTube. And there's a Islander Sewing Systems is our YouTube channel, but there's a playlist specifically for that,
Mm-hmm.
the wovens. And then the last few weeks we've been working on knits. And I know a lot of you bought some knits on sale last week, so
Yes.
no excuses. And if you want to check out, quite a few people posted their camp shirts from the woven series and the changes that they made to them on our Facebook page. So check that out for some inspiration, and please share yours with us if
Yeah.
and when you get it done. Um, Patricia says I'm too young for a senior moment. Never too young. My gray hairs say otherwise, Patricia. Um,
You're just getting an early start so
yeah,
you
I'm
can
an
do it
early
right.
start. It's like, I like to really get good at something. So last week in the knit series, we worked on
Changing the neckline.
changing the neckline.
And in last week's newsletter, which is archived on our website, you will find the formula for making, knowing exactly what length neckband you want to put on your t shirt. So, as you make these changes to the neckline, it's going to be a different shape and a different circumference than the original, so you need that formula. So be sure to take a look at that. Now, that formula is also in this week's newsletter because I added a little something to it that worked out well for me, and I'll talk about that in the demo today. But make sure you take a look at that and know that that other newsletter is archived. So whenever you need that information, how to measure the neckline accurately and how to create the right length band for your t-shirt.
So today we are moving on with more knits.
More what?
I was replying to some comments. Well, that one wasn't. I didn't forget what I was doing. I was just doing something else.
Yes, Jessica, we are doing teas. We're
Welcome
working
to
with
Tuesdays
knits.
at 2. So today Janet is going to give you some more demos, and this one I know people were excited about. It's taking your traditional t-shirt silhouette and changing it into a
Swing tee, which is really very in style, young and old right now. So you're going to see it on the very young sites, especially the bohemian style. You're going to see swing tees everywhere. So it's not a specific age group or genre, it's for everybody. And yeah, so we're going to do that. So first, let's just remember. Now I'm working with the 5 Easy Tees pattern, and here is the traditional silhouette of that pattern. It's very, can you see it good? Because I can't tell. It's very straight, it is set to come up over the hips. So it'll have a little, it's not going to be skin tight, but it's a fairly silhouette hugging, um, or body hugging silhouette. That's the word.
There you go.
So that's where I started, and I started with the 5 Easy Tees. However, you can start with the t-shirt pattern that is the Sloper Block t-shirt pattern. It's also available in kit form on the fitting page. So you could start with that one, or you could start with the 5 Easy Tees. Did you want to tell them about what's on sale this week?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So last week we talked about how we did the knits on sale, and then this week Janet is doing 15. This is a new sale. We've never done this before. 15% off all things fitting. So if you go to our website, and I will put the link in just a second. If you go to our website, across the top, where you can choose your different categories, what you're shopping for, there is a fitting link. And you can click on that, and it's 15% off everything with the code FITSME, FITSME, FITSME. So that includes everything, even the knit fit kits, even the fitting support, right?
Yes.
Ooh.
And any of the Sloper Block patterns for fitting. So that's the kids and the adults. There's several different bodices, and there's also the t-shirt, and then there are pants, leggings, and skirts. So there's everything. So anything that you might need for fitting is on there, including our measuring tape that you can measure yourself.
Measure yourself, yep.
Mm-hmm.
So I just put that link in the comments with the code, and check it out when you get the chance. It goes until Sunday, the 19th.
Okay. All right. So again, I'm starting with the pattern here, and I have a master pattern that I've already adjusted for myself and made plenty of 5 Easy Tees out of. Plenty. So I'm going to come over here, Jess.
So I guess I'll turn the camera around so they
That'd be
can
helpful.
see.
I appreciate it. All right, so as you can see, hopefully, Jessica will tell me if you can see it, but this is my 5 Easy Tees pattern, and you can see it's well used. I might just need to clean it up and make a new one. But this is, and I've also, on both of mine, made them so that if I had a specific print, like a big print, and I want to make sure I don't get too big flowers right on my bust points, then I can have this pattern wide open and have the fabric open so I can move it around and adjust it. So I've created it in both ways, and again, like we said, it's been used a lot. You can see, like I always tell you, I put notes on here what I've done. So I have narrowed the shoulder and I've raised the back neck on this one. And that's pretty much all I've had to do with this pattern to get a good fit. Okay, so we want to do a swing tee, which means that we want to keep the top part of our bodice fitting. So we don't want this to get all loose and baggy up in this area. What we want is it to swing out at the bottom. So the first thing you want to do is take your well-fitting t-shirt pattern and trace it out. Now what you want to do is you want to divide it. So what I did on this one is I marked off the seam allowance, which on mine is 3/8, and I measured the width of half of the front. And I divided that in half. I found the bust point, and then on that halfway between the seam allowance and the fold and all the way up to that bust point, I drew a very straight vertical line, and then I cut it open. Now you're going to do this with the front and the back. Now what we need to do is spread this. So I'm going to spread it, and this is going to be very different. So first of all, what I want you to do is from about the bust point, trace the whole top of this bodice. And you're going to put a weight on it to hold it in place. And here's my weight. Okay, so that's not going to do a real good job, but stick with me. It's supposed to be weighted down. Oh, that's not going to work either. Will you grab a couple of weights? It's right around behind that dress form.
Do you want the like the washer?
Yeah, the washers are my favorites. They're heavy and they're flat. So for those of you who are newer to rotary cutting, and I know there's a few of you, I love these. These are from probably Home Depot or something. These are not washers, or not fabric weights. They're washers, but they have fabric weights that are like that. But what's nice is it's got a very low profile, so, and it takes up a nice wide space to flatten it out and hold it in place. So I like these a lot. All right, so we want to keep the front straight. Remember, our center front, no matter what we're making, is on the straight of grain, so the garment hangs correctly. So what we want to do is spread this one, and I spread mine 3 inches. Now, I know last week I got an email from Brenda the Spenda, and she said she was worried that a spread t-shirt would make a woman look like she was pregnant or had a really big stomach. And what I said to her is, well, you can control the amount of spread. And if you don't have very big hips or a very big stomach, maybe you don't want as much spread. So you might want to play with this a little bit, making a muslin. Maybe you only want to do 2 inches. I did 3, which is really going to exaggerate this. So I did 3. So that's how far I spread that. So I'm traced around the top, I'm traced down here and across here. Now I'm going to trace up to here and about to here, okay? And we're going to stop right about here. So we don't have anything traced between this point and this point right now. But we got everything else, and there's no need to draw out the slit because that was just a working detail, okay? So then, let's see, is this my swing tee? Yes. So then what we end up with, here's my finished pattern. So after I let go of that spread, you see, here we go. So after I let go and I've got it traced up to here and I let go of that spread, you'll easily be able to see that you just need to connect it in here, okay? So you're gonna know that you have to connect from here to here, and you know the shape, So it's not going to be a big mystery on how to connect that. Okay, so that's all you have to do. And now you have the front of a swing tee. And you see again, because we split it like this, we've only added the smallest amount up in the waist area and really getting to the widest part the farther we get to the bottom. So you'll have a really nice fit up in here. And then you'll have a nice loose swing at the bottom. Um, okay, so here's the back, and I did the same thing with the back. Here's our back pattern. So it's the same. So we're going to trace around the top, down the center front, make sure this always stays straight, weight it down, and then we're going to pull this out the amount we want, draw this, and then take this out of the way and connect this. Now, there's one last step when you connect that side seam, and that is what we call truing or balancing the pattern. So you're going to take the front and the back and put them over top of each other and make sure they match. And of course, I've already done that. But you see, they must be the same shape and length. So if, this one was in a little bit and the other one, the back was out a little bit, split the difference and just make them blend nicely together. Okay? So that's how to create the swing tee. And here is an example right here of the swing tee. Now this one's out of ITY, and you can do this out of any knit. I like a little more body to the knit for a swing, so possibly, well, we have a few of those bamboo knits that are a little bit heavier prints, like the one right here on the table, or all the ITYs would work really good in a swing tee. The one thing that you're going to notice in the newsletter that I was talking about earlier is that I felt that with the formula that we use, and I've always made this shirt with the same, and I've even marked it on my pattern piece, the exact, here it is, the exact width and length of my neckband. However, I wanted it a little bit wider, so I cut it not 1 inch, but I cut it 1 1/4. So I'd get a little deeper neckband. But then I felt like it was a little loose. It just didn't quite contour as snugly as I would like. And I think it's because this is an ITY that's really got a lot of give. So what I did was, I figured, well, we quarter it when we put it on, and I need about 1/8 less per quarter. So I took a 1/2 inch off. So instead of 25 5/8 inch long for my neckband, I made it 25 1/8. And I'll show you the results. I'm not sure you're going to even be able to see the difference. This guy's a little hard to move.
Oh.
All right, so then I'm creating here a tunic, a swing tee tunic length. Now, it might not look tunic length to you, but let's remember I'm 5'1" and I made this for me. So I didn't want to get it too long because I don't want it down below my knees or anything. So I only added 2 inches, but it's the standard action that you would do with any pattern, and that is to split it down here. Now we know we want all this to fit the same, so I would split it just below that bust point and then bring it down the length, the distance you want. So if you wanted 2, you bring it down 2, what, 3 or 4, depending on your height and the end result you're looking for. So you're going to do this, basically the same thing to lengthen it. But this one, I felt like the neckline band cupped a lot better. So taking that 1/2 inch off was great. And I'm also kind of playing around right now with the split on the side. Because it's a swing this is going to want to fall right and left instead of fall right smack together. It's the swing is going to make it want to split, which is a really good slimming effect. Wear this with a black pair of leggings or slacks. This will fall open. It'll give you a very slim hip look and just be very feminine. So you can see we got the swing in the back, but again, it fits really nice up around the shoulders and the bust. So you can make that even longer. And I've got two different length slits I'm playing with right now. So this one's a shorter one, and this one isn't pleasing me as much as the longer split. So I think this is the one I'm going to go with. But it's easy. Like, you don't know, do I want a 6-inch split? Do I want a 4-inch split? We'll make one on each side, baste it up, and try it out. Easy as that. So this is my swing tunic. And again, you can make that as long as you like.
Judith wanted to know, you didn't make the side seam the same length as the original? That's, the question was after you were doing your tracing, not on the tunic.
No, the side seam is the same length, Judith. So let me just show you. Actually, it's a tad shorter, but that's not necessary. So yeah, I got 3/4 of an inch shorter on my finished tee, but not on my swing. So if I did make it a little bit shorter, Judith, I didn't do that for any specific reason as far as making the pattern. So it's entirely up to you. And I think that swing brought, when I swung it out, it brought it up a little bit. I could have counteracted that and brought it, made it longer. So again, just a personal preference on the length that you want.
And Linda's asking if for this a ponte would work.
Well, it depends on the weight of the ponte. Certainly a ponte would work, but you don't want like a bottom weight ponte. So make sure it's maybe like 6 ounces or less, and then it should work fine. As a matter of fact, I think I have to check with Brown Duds on the website. Just these might be 7 ounce, and they would work as well. We can look that up. I'll ask Bren. Hey, Bren, can you look up the new bamboo knits, the print ones, and see what the weight is? Because that weight would be fine as well, and that would translate over to a ponte well. So was that Judith Newman that asked the question before that? Hi, Judith. It's been a long time.
Sandra wants to know what the neckline is on the blue t-shirt.
What'd she say?
7.2.
Yes. So 7.2 even in that ponte would be a reasonable weight. Okay, these necklines are exactly the neckline that's on the pattern. I just didn't put the ruching and I didn't make the little V. So I just skipped those 2 steps and I have a nice kind of more of an oval than a round. But you know, round is very big, or a neckline that comes across and up here. If you don't want to expose as much neck, you could come across and make it a little bit wider even. But if you make it wider in the front, gotta be wider in the back too, because those seams have to match up.
Sandy wants to know, so if you want to make it into a knee-length dress, how do you add that much length?
Well, okay, first things first. First we want to know, how wide do you want it? Do you want it to just be a little flowy? Because we've already got a fairly wide. So again, all you'd have to do is split it and bring it down to the length you wanted. So maybe you want it just below the knee or something. Certainly could do that. You could also spread it a little bit more and make it even a little bit wider if you wanted to, once you've lengthened your pattern.
Just use the lengthen line.
Yeah, just use, well, there isn't a short and lengthen line on this one, so you have to make your own. But always know, if you're making your own short and lengthen line, it must be perpendicular to the grain line, or in this case, it's the fold line. So you want to make sure, and having these wonderful uh, rulers, and you can line that right up and you can see that it's exactly perpendicular to that line, then you know you're cutting it correctly. And then you want to make sure that you do that same uh, horizontal line in the same location front and back so that you get a more accurate lengthening. Yes?
Gail's wondering, how do we adjust for a Batman or boat neck?
Oh, it's not Batman. Well,
I figured that was an autocorrect, but
yeah.
I'm reading it as it says.
Well, it's a boat neck, and so that's a square. Is that what she's talking about?
Well, she did say boat neck, but she also said Batman.
Yeah. So the problem is that if you're going to do that, you do the same thing we talked about last week. You can either superimpose a pattern that already has that neckline on it. There's a similar neckline. Let's see. Right here in view B. See this? Okay. That's kind of an interesting neckline. But for me, these necklines must have a facing or a binding as opposed to a band. So a binding would fold over the edge like I'm thinking of that, fold over elastic or something. But you get into problems when you have these irregular shaped corners. It's not a square corner, and you'll have to play with getting that just right. And usually a neckline like this doesn't want the band sticking up, it wants the facing inside. So then I've showed you how to make facings. You use the pattern. After you create the neckline, do it in an inexpensive knit, try it on, make sure it's not too big or too small and it's the look you want. Then use that pattern to create that facing. And in a knit, I wouldn't make a very wide facing. Maybe I'd cut it at 2 inches at best. You're not going to fold over the bottom edge of it, and you're going to use about 1/4 of an inch to stitch to it, so that would make it 1 3/4 inch width facing. And so that's what you would do with that type of a neckline. I think it's a bateau.
She did, yes, she did. She changed it.
So did that, make sure that answered her question, make sure I'm on the right track with that, but any other questions? All right, I have another demo for you. Can you tell me who requested this demo, Jess?
Yeah, Tracy.
Tracy Fearon?
Yes.
Okay, Tracy asked, once I've made changes, let's say specifically if you had made this into a dress, you're going to wonder, well, how much fabric do I buy? So the answer would probably escape most people, and it's so simple. So let's say that I'm going to make this swing tee, like the blue one. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a piece of fabric out of my stash that's the width that I need. So for a knit, they're usually 54 to 60 inches wide. If you don't have a piece of fabric, then you could mark out with masking tape or something the width of the fabric, okay? And then we're going to lay these pieces on here. Now the first thing you're going to say to me is, well, both of these go on the fold. But if they'll fit across this way folded once, then they will fit by folding each edge into the middle, because both have to go on a fold. So this is just my place marker to make sure that I've got enough fabric. And then I'm going to come up here and I'm going to put a sleeve in. So whatever sleeve you're going to put in. And then, luckily on our table, because we do this all the time for our patterns, so we know how much to tell you to purchase fabric. So we've got a gridded table, but most of you do not. So you take your tape measure And I can comfortably get this out of 41 to 42 inches of fabric, 60 inches wide. But basically, I want a few extra inches. So if I go to 45, which is a yard and a half, I'm going to be good. I've got that little bit of extra. Also, it's really good idea when you're trying to calculate the measurement on your own. Make sure all the pattern pieces are going in the same direction, because you don't know, you might get to the fabric store and purchase a beautiful one-way print, but you calculated your measurement by having some of the pieces upside down to get, see, I can get in less fabric, but my problem is if I've got that one-way print with palm trees, the palm trees on my sleeve are going to be upside down. So make sure that you calculate everything with all the pieces going the same way, and then you'll be safe. I think that should do it.
Better to have a couple extra inches than be a couple inches short.
For me, I'm most likely to purchase or cut an extra quarter yard. It's usually not that much more money, and it gives me such peace of mind. If I make a mistake and I bugger up one of the sleeves, I still have enough to cut an extra sleeve or whatever that might be. Collars on woven garments and things, but whatever it might be, that extra quarter of a yard just gives me a sense of security. So that's what I always do. I err on the extra quarter. All right. So if there aren't any more questions, I think our demo is complete.
Sandy wants to know, do you feel like you need to add extra for shrinkage?
Well, it depends on the fabric. Now, this particular fabric I have laid out here, and it's the last piece of this beautiful stuff, but it does shrink a small amount. But the amount it shrinks, I don't want a fabric that shrinks significantly. But the amount this shrinks, I wouldn't even, after my quarter yard, I wouldn't go any further. So I just throw that extra quarter yard in there in case of shrinkage, in case I make a mistake, whatever.
And Selena asks, if you have four-way stretch, can you use cross grain?
Well, it depends on how much stretch is on the cross grain. If you have as much stretch on the cross grain as you do on this grain, then yes, absolutely, and I've done it. But I want to just throw out there that there's no such thing as four-way stretch. Now, I know they tell you there's four-way stretch, but the reality is it stretches horizontally, that's one way. It stretches vertically, that's the other way, that's two. Where's the other two? It always makes me kind of laugh because I don't know why they came up with that term, because in the industry, it's either two-way or not at all. So, just know that in case you see that it says two-way stretch, it means the same thing as four-way stretch.
Alright, so will you have more knit tips for us next week?
Yes, next week we're going to go into doing the kimono sleeve on a knit that can turn it into a shirt, a dress, or a nightgown. So we're going to do that next week, and I'll show you the simple steps to do that and what you need to look for or look out for. So that'll be next week. And that should wrap us up on our knit tea series for the Stop the Insanity. But if you have other questions that we haven't answered or something that you think we should add, please send me an email at islandersewing@comcast.net.
Okay, Carolyn did just come in with a good question. Why wouldn't you fan out the side seam versus slicing the pattern?
Oh yeah, I'm going to tell, I was waiting for that question. Thank you so much. So here's what happens. I bought a garment like that and didn't realize it. And I liked it so much when it started to wear out, I went to copy it and I saw what they did. Well, I went to copy it and I go, that won't work. So then I put the garment back on, and that's what they had done. They flared out the side seams. The whole thing pitches either forward or backward. It does. That side seam will not stay straight anymore. It'll come forward because you made it go out. But by adding the extra fabric in here, even though you slanted that side seam, you've added the fabric in the bottom front of the shirt. If you only slant out the side seam, you've only added the fabric there, so it has no place to go, but it's here, and it causes an unstable side seam that won't stay straight. So that's why.
And more tent-like.
Yes, yes. Depending on the drape of the fabric, it could just stick straight out like this too. But it's more likely on a knit or a French terry is just gonna pitch forward.
All right. I'm glad we got that question in, Carolyn. That was a good one.
Yes. Yeah, I was hoping somebody would ask that question.
All right. So then we will be back next week.
Next week, and we'll be doing the nightgown dress tee
Ooh.
with the kimono sleeve.
Okay.
And, you know, we've had a couple of interesting questions or requests, especially for using stripes. So that could make a real interesting sleeve treatment. So, you know, we're going to cover some of that. But again, if you've got other things you'd like to know about or like us to consider adding, just send us an email and we will take a look.
islandersewing@comcast.net.
That's it. All right, well, I think that's going to wrap it up for today. But remember that newsletter. You're going to want to take a look at the newsletter. It's got a link right to the fitting page, but everything on the fitting page, which is really 2 pages, is discounted this week. So if you're ready to get your fit on and have a nice fitted garment, whether it's a knit shirt or a woven, pants or leggings, whatever you want to get fitted, now's the time to take advantage of that 15% off.
Yep, with the code FITSME.
Fits me. Don't forget the S. Fits me.
All right, well, we'll see you next week. Stay cool or warm or whatever it is you need and out of the storms.
Yeah, stay dry in the on the West Coast and stay cool in the South, and apparently all the way up here we're going to have a heat wave this week. So, but whatever you do, enjoy your sewing and enjoy your week. Thanks so much for joining us here on Tuesdays at 2 for Islander Sewing Systems. I'm Janet Prey, joined by Jessica Johnson each week. We look forward to seeing you again next Tuesday. Bye.